Okay.
My finger goes down, start.
Okay. Hello, this is a very special opportunity for the people of Rancho Bernardo and the greater region of San Diego to learn about the background of how Rancho Bernardo came to be. And we have a very special guest from the Rancho Bernardo Historical Society, Mr. Harry Summers, whose name has been linked with Rancho Bernardo because he was here and made it all happen, and we're looking forward to hearing some of the details. Today we are conducting this interview at the historic Bernardo Winery, which was one of the few places that was actually here when Mr. Summers first saw our community, what is now our community, and we're hosted at Cafe Merlot. So with that, my name is Eileen Haig, and it's my privilege to find out a little bit about what happened. Who is Harry Summers? We always link you with the community of Rancho Bernardo, but there was life for you before Rancho Bernardo, and we'd kind of like to know where you grew up and where you went to college and things like that.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Texas, as you can tell by the accent, and I lived in Fort Worth and Longview High School. Graduated from Longview High School. I went to North Texas Agricultural College in Arlington, Texas, which is a military school, and I went to the University of Texas. That was all before World War II, and I went into the Navy in World War II, and I was overseas 3 years in the Pacific. On PT boats, and I was on a fleet oiler. And I returned to University of Texas in 1946 and graduated in 1947. I then went to Fort Worth and looked around and decided Dallas was the place, so I sought to seek my fortune starting in Dallas. I became interested in the house building business, and I worked for two different home builders in Dallas. One of them was interested in, since there wasn't much going on at that time because of lack of materials because of the Korean War, he wanted to come to San Diego to see if we could get into on-base military housing. I flew out to San Diego, spent a week at Camp Pendleton, and bid on the project, and ended up moving here to build 1,500 on-base military houses. After I got involved in that, I decided I wanted to live in California, and I settled in La Jolla. I started out building subdivisions of various sizes around San Diego, and started thinking about getting involved in a larger piece of property. We started looking at one in Sorrento Valley, and thought it had lots of possibilities. I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 acres. And then someone brought us a Daly Ranch, and I came out and met Don and Lawrence Daly, and started looking into it. Talked to the city officials who I knew about the possibility of annexing to get water, and so then we went into a joint venture with the Dalys and started development approximately in 1963. And we started out by putting in Rancho Bernardo Road with the olive trees down the middle. By the way, we went up to Riverside County and bought 1,000 olive trees,
Is that right?
full grown, And those were the first ones that we brought in, and we put them down Rancho Bernardo Road, and we put them in the front yards of every house we built until we ran out of them. So we started building the recreation centers, the golf course, and the country club. At that time, we had United California Bank as our lender, and they gave us a $50 million loan to get started, and that's what put in all of those things and helped us get where we were able to start building houses and selling property.
Well, I know that Susan's going to come back to the annexation and some of those issues, but before I complete, I only have one more question, and that is, how did we get then to Avco Community Developers? If you could give us that piece of history.
Well, I was joint venturing properties with Avco, and they were a very large New York-based corporation. It just so happened that their president lived in La Jolla, and I got to know him, and he became very interested in what I was doing, and so they provided the funds to help us get started.
But before the Avco connection, or was it then, how did the concept of the planned community and you said you started putting in the rec center, so was that your vision? How did that come to be?
Well, we started out with Charles Luckman, a famous architect, and he helped us do a master plan which didn't provide any, basic plans, but just to give the city an idea of what we were hoping to do. And that's how, for instance, the industrial park on the west side was stuck up on the hill. And by the way, it was put up there because we didn't want the housing looking down on industrial property. So we let the industrial property look down on the on the residences.
Excellent.
Which is a little different from most developments.
Absolutely. Well, I know there were lots of interesting things in that original master plan. I did get to see that document at some time, and I don't know whether Susan might, the Historical Society. Susan, this is Susan Floyd, and she is the Rancho Bernardo Historical Society's museum director. And I guess I was going to ask you, do we have a copy of that master plan?
Yes, we do.
We do have a copy, and I know that she has some questions for you, Mr. Summers.
So my first question goes back to one of the details that you just gave about some property in Carmel Valley, Sorrento Valley.
Yeah.
If they had said yes to your first proposal, would Rancho Bernardo never have come about? Perhaps
Well,
that's an if question.
I don't know whether it come about. We might have been so tied up in that property that we would not have been able to get involved in Rancho Bernardo. Or maybe we could have gotten to Rancho Bernardo after that project, but I really don't know.
Okay, here's a more informal question. Did you actually ride a horse to the top of a hill in Bernardo Heights with Lawrence and Donald Daly and declare, this is where we will build a community?
Well, I'll have to tell you honestly that I did ride a horse. We didn't go very far, and we sure didn't get up on top of any mountain. So, and I don't remember making that statement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, In 1972, Rancho Bernardo News article on the beginnings of RB said serious thought was given to creating an independent entity through a Special Services Act, but this was rejected in favor of seeking annexation by the city of San Diego. Could the planned community have come into being as an independent municipality? Could you tell us more about that?
I don't believe so, because basically we needed water, and the only place that had sufficient water to supply a 50,000 person new town was the city of San Diego. And so that's why we were very anxious to annex to the city and have access to water. Sewer was no problem in that we just had to build treatment plants down in Lake Hodges and pump the effluent down in the sands where it went through and became just regular river water. So.
You mentioned Charles Luckman, the architect, but there was another partner that you worked with, and that was Fritz Hahn.
Yes, he was my senior partner. He was about 12 years older than I was, and I met him in Dallas. And when I came to San Diego, I did not come out for Fritz Hahn. I came for another builder who was not very anxious to come out to California. And so Fritz stepped up and said he was. And so so he and I became associated from a very early stage.
Did that association change the development of Rancho Bernardo at all?
Oh, no. He was right along, with the whole plan, and unfortunately he didn't live here, and he only got here, and he sold out to Avco when Avco came in. So. And
Charles Luckman, was he the pioneer for age-restricted communities?
No, he didn't.
It's a good thing you're here to correct all these myths that have grown up.
No, Luckman was one of the finest architects in the country, but he had nothing to do with the senior citizens program. We got interested in the senior citizens aspect because we needed people to move from other parts of California and the USA here to live in a retirement community just like they did at Sun City and in Arizona. And so we spent a lot of time studying the Sun City projects, and that's how and why we got into the retirement community. And actually, I would say that out of the first probably 1,000 houses we sold, 2/3 of them were in the Seven Oaks community. So that's how important it was for us.
As developers, did you have a free hand with respect to environmental concerns? Today, for land developers preparing a project, there are a lot of concerns, issues, regulations, as well as escalating cost of land. Would developing RB be possible today? Would some of these new environmental restrictions have prevented that development?
I don't know what the new restrictions are. I do know that we were the first community in San Diego that went underground. with electrical, telephone, and TV. And so we were very cognizant of these things, but the city, I mean, here we were buying water from them. We were putting in our own treatment plant. We were putting in our own water lines, and we were putting in our own gas and electrical and telephone lines underground.
I guess you were paying few property taxes
well,
as well.
so basically the developer did it all.
Seven Oaks,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
mentioned, was the first area that was developed here.
Well, it was one of the three first. Another one was the residential coming from Rancho Bernardo Road down to the country club and in this area. And the other one was over in Rancho Bernardo on the east side of the little shopping center down here. What do you call that?
It was the old Safeway.
Yeah,
shopping
yeah.
center.
Bernardo Hills, I think
Yeah,
that is.
Bernardo Hills. And that was our lower price residential. And the higher price was here in the golf course area. And then there was the retirement, where we had single family, we had duplexes, and we had, I think, some triplexes over there.
And was Westwood developed to provide housing for people who would come to work in the industrial park? Was that the
Yes,
original thought?
ma'am. I mean, that was to get into more, residential and people, working up in, that we were so lucky to be able to get NCR and Sony up there, because they were the two first large corporations to come into San Diego County.
How did you pull that off?
Well, it was Sony first, and for some reason they wanted to come into the United States, and they wanted to come into a new, fresh area. And we just got along great and put them up there, where they had a beautiful view, and they came right along, and I guess they're still up there, aren't they?
Yeah. And NCR?
Well, that followed along second, and then I think Hewlett Packard went up there too, and then we were off and running. And
Now, wasn't there supposed to be an airport up there at one time?
yes, ma'am. That the airport was where the industrial park ended up. We kicked the airport out.
Guess you made more money having big companies come in
yes,
there.
and actually the airport just went on the plan to fill up space, and then we got rid of it. Yeah.
Do you want me to ask the Logan Jenkins or?
No, I have one more
Okay.
question. Back to Seven Oaks. Do you know how that area was named? Because today, many people who live there believe it was named after an English sea captain who was also the first landowner here in Rancho San Bernardo. His name was Joseph Snook. But many people today who live in Seven Oaks believe that he changed his name from Snook to Seven Oaks, and that's how that part of this community came to have that name. Do you know who chose Seven Oaks
Do you believe that?
No, no.
Well, it's true.
Oh,
It's true. See now, doubters.
Isn't that something?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's really true. We did a lot of research on it, and that's what happened. And old Snook came around here, and I don't know how many thousands of acres he owned, but you know.
isn't that something?
That is something. Well, one of we're being visited today by Logan Jenkins, who writes for the Union Tribune, and he at the tender age of 16, I believe he told me, played in the 1964 San Diego Open.
Did he really?
And since he's been 16 years old, he's been wondering how in the world you got them to play that tournament here in Rancho Bernardo.
Well, at that time, the San Diego Open group were having problems, financial, and they were having problems in raising enough money to guarantee the tournament to the PGA. So we stepped up and put up the $30,000, which was a lot of money in those days. And I brought a brochure.
I think it's
They're back over by your daughter.
Yeah, I brought a 1964. A 1964 brochure, and it has the payments for the various winners, and I don't know. You don't have one of these, and
No, we don't.
we will
know.
now if you can give it. We can
Well,
replicate
yeah,
that.
I'm giving. That's why I brought it out. It's the only one I have. But here's the open purse, and there was a total purse of $30,000, and the winner got $4,300.
Oh my goodness!
Can
Things
you
have
believe
changed.
that? And they had 35 payments, and the 35th payment was for $100.
Oh my goodness.
My
Oh, my
goodness.
goodness.
Who won that year? Do you remember?
Oh,
Art Wall.
huh?
Art Wall.
Art Wall. That's
Art
right.
Wall.
That's right.
Well, we've had many, many wonderful events here in Rancho Bernardo, and we've lived many wonderful lives. I'm going to turn it over to Myrna, but I have to ask, there's one phrase that I have heard associated with you for a long time. And I think someone told me that...
Clean.
No. Well, maybe that, but that's not the one I've heard. I've heard that at the July 4th barbecue, maybe the first one or the second, because we used to have the big one where the
Oh,
saddle
yeah,
club was
and I've got
built.
a picture.
Yeah, yeah, and they used to roast the pig.
Where is the pictures over there?
So let's look at the pic. At any rate, I understand that when people came to the July 4th barbecue and you welcomed them, did you see that? I should say we are being filmed by Larry McIntyre, if I didn't say that before. Thank you, Larry. That you greeted people by saying, well, welcome to another lousy day in paradise.
Well, I think that was one of my.
Well, and it is a paradise that
Yeah.
you've created here.
Oh,
So,
yes.
Myrna, this is Myrna Reese, who is the president of the Rancho Bernardo Hall of Fame, and she has a few questions.
And I'm also with the Historical Society on the
Okay.
board, so I'm very involved here. It's
Good.
a pleasure to have you. Now tell me, after you left AVCO, what areas did you develop?
Well, I continue to develop single-family housing around San Diego in various size developments. And then I ended up down in La Jolla doing a high-rise office park. And it's there at the by the big shopping mall there. And it was about, I don't know, a couple of million square feet of office. And so that was basically my last project.
Oh my goodness, well that was a wonderful one. Now, is there any aspect of this community that was not developed the way you envisioned in Rancho Bernardo?
Of course, I haven't been over all of the development, but what I know there isn't. I think it certainly has exceeded my expectations.
So you're happy what you see?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because the people here really love it,
Well,
and they
great.
feel it's home, and it became a family in a lot of ways.
Well,
where
I
people,
hope so.
It did, and all of the ages. I mean, it's people do for each other here. It's a wonderful community.
Well,
We
great.
love it.
I hope that includes all of the areas.
Yes,
You know.
that's what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
all of them have kind of come together, and they help each other. It's wonderful.
That's great.
Is what you see today the vision that you had back in 1962?
Well, let me just say this. I haven't been out here in a few years, and we just drove in straight to here. But what I've seen, I mean, it's just really something. I'm very impressed, and I think I think it's beyond my expectations. It really is.
Oh, I'm so glad, because people here know the name Harry Summers,
Well, it's,
and this is a wonderful thing that you have done to come here so that we could interview you and have this in the Historical Society, because now people will be able to see you and know you.
well, that's
And we thank you so much for coming. It's just been wonderful, and we appreciate your coming, and we hope that you will enjoy meeting all the people that are coming here to see you today.
well, that's wonderful. I'm happy to be here. My wife is over here. Wife Joyce, and my son Tyson,
Oh, wonderful.
and my daughter Linda is the other daughter here. So we're all here.
Were they here before? Have they seen Rancho Bernardo?
Oh yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Would you like to come back and live here?
Huh? Well, I'd love to. We live in a little podunk place called Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
You ever been there?
Yes.
Have you?
It's very nice.
Oh, we love
Oklahoma's
it there.
nice.
It really is nice. It's small town.
Well, this is too. Maybe
Yeah.
you'll come back.
Yeah.
We'd
Good,
love it.
Good.
And
Good.
you'd be very, very welcome.
Good.
So
Good.
thank you for being with us today, and we hope that you will have many, many years of joy and happiness and health.
Well, thank you very much. And myself and my wife and family would like to donate $10,000 to your club,
The Historical Society?
Historical Society.
Oh, how wonderful.
Thank you.
And so that you can, have
Thank you.
have some funds too.
Well, we're planning to build a museum,
Well, good.
and we're hoping that everything will come, and people are bringing us things. We have a lot of artifacts now, and we will probably get more, and we appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Good. Well, you're certainly welcome. Oh,
That's
I haven't heard that one.
I have. I've heard that.
Well, you know, we,
But you did a lot of marketing in Chicago, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, we did, because we found that that was a very good retirement area to get people, and we got a lot of them out here.
especially during a snowstorm.
Yeah, and we got that idea by doing some surveys around Sun City in Arizona, and Chicago area seemed to be very popular. So.
Who came up with the 52-week vacation
I was just
marketing
going to
slogan?
ask that, yeah.
You know, I don't remember.
Sure was a good one.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the different street names?
I'm not even sure about that.
That's a good question.
How about for the different communities? I mean, some of them seem pretty obvious. Westwood is on the west side, but how did
Yeah.
you come up with the different?
I don't remember.
Why didn't you keep the San Diego Open here, or did they get funding down at Stardust and go back?
Yeah, they started getting additional funding, and then they went out on Torrey Pines.
See, I always thought it was because you were so clever that you wanted to get the Rancho Bernardo community onto national television.
No, that's good.
It's up the hill.
You know, we tried really hard to, one of our great hopes was that we would be able to take the original information center and move it and keep that as our museum, but by the time we got around to it, the building was not able to sustain. It had lived its life.
Yeah, well, I imagine.
But we have, when it was demolished, we kept things from that
yes.
building, and so they will be incorporated into the museum when it's built. So
Well, it
that'll
had
be
been
great.
moved several times.
That's we read that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one question I have is, of all of the things you've done in development, does Rancho Bernardo stand out as the one with the greatest sort of human component?
Oh yeah, and you know, having an opportunity to do something like this, you know, to think about it, get it down on paper, and then see it, you know, come along. Now that doesn't mean that we didn't have some sticky moments as we went along when sales were slow, but we fortunately had some fine lenders with us, and we were able to continue. Yes, sir.
How big a role did Richard Weiser play in initial development?
Dick Weiser was the #2 land planner for the city of San Diego, and I went down and just lured him away because I needed his land planning expertise, and he was invaluable. And yeah, he was here from the get-go, and we worked very close together, and he was a fine gentleman, fine fellow.
Is that a help in getting the annexation, as far as him moving over from the city government, his contacts or anything like that?
Oh, sure, yes, that was very helpful, and of course a lot of the people down there had worked for him, and he was able to work closely with them and in working things out.
You did something kind of novel, didn't you, with the connecting Rancho Bernardo to San Diego? It was a pretty fine little corridor.
Well, yes, and we had to do that to get that water. And so we had a 100-foot wide annexation from Rancho Bernardo to the south side of Miramar Naval Air Station. And we had to run that line all the way up there and get you water here.
So the line actually went through that corridor?
Yes, sir. Went right down that corridor.
When they annexed San Ysidro, they did something similar, annexing a corridor through the bay, so they wouldn't violate the law of annexing a non-contiguous piece of property.
So that's how we were able to do it. And see, sewer we built, you know, down in the river basin down there.
Do you know why the community has 2 zip codes?
Beg your pardon?
Why does the community have 2 zip codes? Do you know
I
anything about that?
don't. Don't know.
I heard that you might have something about that you drove the distance. There was like tied in with the selling point that it was not that far from downtown San Diego. That you might have driven it at night or something. Do you know anything about like how far you guys were from saying like it's only 30 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever. From
You
the
wouldn't believe something like that, would you?
I don't know. I was told to ask this question.
It's true.
It is true.
I did it about 11 o'clock one night from downtown San Diego to Rancho Bernardo, and I could truthfully say that Rancho Bernardo was 20 minutes from downtown San Diego. Or what time of day?
So you knew that Interstate 15 was coming.
No, sir. Not then.
Not then?
Not
Wow.
then. No.
Must have come as a nice surprise.
Wasn't
Uh-huh.
it 395 in then?
It was 395.
Yeah.
It was. No,
So it was a
Interstate
highway.
15 came in around late 1960s, early 70s.
No, it was about 79.
it was much later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you're not doing it at 11 o'clock at night, how long did it take to get down to San Diego?
We don't talk about that. That wasn't in our advertising.
I'm just asking from experience. What was it?
I don't know why people always ask me about that drive.
Well, but it was a freeway that went down, because 395.
No, ma'am, it was 2 lane.
Oh.
And there was no
Oh,
post.
my
There was no
goodness.
post office here in the community. Is that and
That's right. And actually, it was 4 lane, kind of coming through the park, coming down to Mission Valley, and then from Mission Valley out here it was 2 lane.
Oh my goodness.
So,
And where did the first residents go to get their mail? I think it was to Miramar, but I'm not sure.
I'm
Is
not
that right?
sure.
Yes.
Could
Our
have been.
historian says Miramar.
That's
Could
what
have
I
been.
read.
Could have been a ways.
Yeah. And I know there were no traffic signals in Rancho Bernardo
No.
for quite some time.
No, where was the first one?
I don't know
Here-
whether it was at Pomerado and Rancho Bernardo
That's
Road.
right.
Is that
I
the first one?
think-
But that was a 4-way stop in those
Yeah.
early days, and that of course was. And I guess is that why UCB located in that shopping center, because they lent the property for money for the
Yes,
development?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. That's right, and that's why I had my office above their office.
So now, how
So
now,
all I had to do was just drop a bucket down, and
so now eventually that property was that shopping center was owned by Jim McMillan. I think it still is.
I had
So
no
you
idea.
don't. So, but that was part of the complex of Rancho Bernardo
Oh, yeah.
when you owned
Oh, yes,
when you
ma'am.
came in.
Mhm. Yeah, it sure was.
When was the first Mercado built? Do you know?
Do you know when the first that was
you
in the
here
early
then?
'70s, and it was the nice water fountain Mercado.
It was wood, all wood in different levels.
It was in the early '70s.
Was it?
Yeah. Must be the
You
early
didn't
70s.
see that though, did you?
You mean when I came in here?
No. When it was built, did you see that?
Well, I must have.
Must
but I-
have, yeah.
They had to tear it down because it rot, the wood rot, and so they couldn't fix it, and they tore it down and put another one in.
Well, I'm sure I didn't build it then.
Absolutely. But you know, it really was. It was such
Very
a
good.
community building block. The way that the recreation centers were deeded into the sale of the property, because that has sustained all of those community centers throughout all these years, and made it really part of the way our community connects with each other. So that was just talking about master planning a community. That was just a brilliant
Well,
stroke.
good.
Oh,
Good.
yes.
I'm glad.
And they all do a lot for the communities.
Well,
Mhm.
that's what we hoped for.
Yes. And it worked.
What about over in Westwood?
Oh, they have a very strong community
Do they?
center. Oh,
Good.
yes.
Because they were just getting started, when I left, and so. I didn't-
Well, we had a terrible fire here last year.
You did?
Oh, yeah. There were
07.
a lot of homes were burned and
We're back over
in
here.
Westwood and in the trails.
Oh, yeah, on the trail.
And,
No, I'm sorry.
but you know, the whole town kind of got together, and there's been a lot of help from people living here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's being rebuilt.
Good.
When did
Ask that
you
again.
start the whole process of starting it?
Oh,
What
okay.
year
That's a
did
good
you end up leaving to move on?
Let's see. Started about 62, and I guess I don't know, as long in 80, somewhere along in there. I can't.
Was this the first community to have CCNRs, or had others had it before that?
Oh no, the others had had it. Yeah.
What do you remember about the winery from those early days? What was
You know,
it like?
I came over here one time. This is the second time I've ever been here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Do you remember when Mike Douglas came out here and had a show and stomped grapes out here at the winery?
No, ma'am.
That happened
no.
really early, like in 1971 or so.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
No.
No, but I know most of the community events were held on that Saddle Club property, and the July 4th picnic and those kinds of things. So.
Well, I'm sure my wife has a hard time believing that I didn't come to this winery but one time.
Well, maybe you can make up for that.
Well,
Do you recall when the original sales office moved from RB Road, Palm Road to a different location?
well, the sales office was down on Rancho Bernardo Road there.
Where the Prudential building is now. That was the original information center. Yeah. Yeah.
But wasn't there one up at Colorado and RB Road?
Well, that was our office there. I guess there's a sales office there also.
Well, you had some competitors that were selling against your new homes with selling properties that were for resale. And there was kind of a nice, there was a spirited competition among realtors who came into
We didn't
town.
pay any attention to them.
But they had some offices in that shopping center.
We'd be talking about Jack Carter, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't be talking about Jack Carter.
Is he still around?
He's still around.
He's
yeah.
still
Is
around.
he?
Yeah.
Tell him hello for me, would you?
Do that. Yes, absolutely. He was my first client when I came out here. I'm at an advertising agency, and he was my very first client
Oh, good.
back in '77. So that was fun.
Yeah, he was with us a long time. Huh?
Yeah, he was.
Picture had to be.
That's the same. They still have that podium at Rancho Bernardo.
There you go. You look exactly the same.
Because you still do this. This is how you kind of put your hand up like that. See this one? Right here. It's cute.
Oh, glad. Yeah, well, you know.
Oh, here we go. Take pictures.
And look over here.
Yeah, by all
Richard Weiser, he's no longer with us?
No.
There you are down there with a new car, huh?
Yeah.
I'm gonna scoop.
Yeah, I used to work for him at that time. Yeah, I've worked in, I'm retired now.
Yeah.
But Lawrence actually ran this part.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry.
They courted each other. Congratulations.
I'll get back and talk to you in a little bit here, Harry. Same as you did.
Yeah.
You and Hal.
I hardly knew any of the two.
I didn't start. I started
Clean the house out.
You're right here. Yeah, it was time to get new ones.
Right up. See that table?
Taking this audio.
I said to Mr. Summers, this is just one of the many things you've accomplished, but it means a lot to everyone here. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you will continue to support the Historical Society. A lot of you have asked how we're doing on our museum. Don't worry, we're building it. We just don't know where. Maybe in Tom's garage, and then we'll just tow it to wherever we end up. So thank you very, very much for being here today.
Thanks, Nancy. Before I turn the mic over to Jack Mitchell, I wanted to mention just something as to why this all happened today. And that was many of the events that I've gone to over the past 15 years for the Historical Society, for the Hall of Fame, for the Community Foundation, for all these different organizations. People would get up and thank everybody for getting an award, but they would always mention one name, Harry Summers. Thank you, Harry Summers, for creating this atmosphere. Thank you, Harry Summers, for doing this for us. It was always the name Harry Summers. And that was the reason why I was really motivated to contact him and get a hold of him and have him brought here today and have him share and see what we all enjoy living here today and what he created. So, again, one last thank you, Harry Summers, for all you did for Rancho Bernardo. And with that, I do want to now invite Jack Mitchell and Frank Turson to give us a little song about Rancho Bernardo.
You know, someone just said to me, I wonder when Larry Summers is going to talk about the health plan. You're in the wrong place. Today is going to be fun and frolic. And you know, way back when the high school was being built, I had heard the wonderful song, Harry, you probably know the original song that was written about Rancho Bernardo. It was written to Hawaiian guitars and so on. And I said, we needed something that had just a little bit of pep to the thing. And so at that time, I wrote the words and the music to something which I called Rancho Bernardo High. And everyone at the high school thought it meant Rancho Bernardo High School. But it just, all it says is that I'm high on Rancho Bernardo. And we were high. We came here 26 years ago, and we are high on Rancho Bernardo. And I thank you.
You need that.
You bet. I'm going to need that, righto.
So do I.
Righto. I only wrote the words. And the orchestra is down here, and we have one microphone, and I'm going to give it pretty much to Frank. Now, Frank is a soloist. He's a singer.
Right.
And then my name is actually John, and so we call ourselves Frankie and Johnny. I am safe. Frank is not. All right, so we're going to go and do this song about Rancho Bernardo. And it starts out, Rancho Bernardo is where I want to be, to gaze at the mountains, look out towards the sea, a mecca for thousands, a place to live free. Rancho Bernardo, the one place for me. Okay, the orchestra's going to start, and then we're ready to go. Hold on. All right, here you go.
The battery is working, Jack.
I hope. Yeah. All right.
We don't rely on our memories anymore, particularly Jack.
Yeah,
He's
that's
don't
right.
rely on it.
That's right. Yeah. You know, oh, Rancho Bernardo,
where I want to be,
to gaze at the mountains,
look out toward the sea, a
mecca for thousands, a place to live free. Rancho Bernardo, the one place for me. About 50 years since the vision was new, the pioneers' dream plans for me and for you. 3 cheers for our leaders for seeing it through. Rancho Bernardo, loyal and true. We love the hustle and bustle, the neatness and pride in each home. And we stand at attention whenever we mention the place we call our own.
We love every red roof that touches the sky,
and the light on the mountain that shines way up high, the shops in the village where we love to buy. We've got that Rancho Bernardo high, love of our schools and our children, our cultural leisure pursuits, and we're filled with emotion and downright devotion, and firmly plant our roots. Yes,
Rancho Bernardo has now come of age,
writing its history page after page, and living in RB is now all the rage.
no doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
Stand up and shout it.
Stand up and shout it. We've got that Rancho Bernardo high.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. That is a tradition that will last forever with us. 50 years ago, that was the creation that you made, Harry. One last thing, I do want to make an announcement, and that is that this afternoon, after the interview, Mr. and Mrs. Summers made a donation to our Historical Society for $10,000 to help build this facility even better. So thank you again for all of that. Thank you, one and all. No more speeches. We're all here to just have a good time, to share. Tell Harry how much you appreciate Rancho Bernardo. Have a nice time. Tony Kraft, thank you so much for opening your facility here. We thank you. There's plenty of food inside and out. So please, enjoy yourselves for the rest of the evening and have a nice time. Thank you, one and all.